33-16 is your final score on Monday night with the Dallas Cowboys defeating the Las Vegas Raiders, holding them to 209 passing yards and a meager 27 rushing yards in their complete and utter dominance and victory. As we called here on the game plan, I'm Mike, that's Slater. Slater, you want to go ahead and give us your rundown on your take of Dallas's defensive performance Monday night?
Yeah, for all the haters who did not like the Quinn Williams trade, you can maybe walk that talk back a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. It was exciting to see. It was awesome to see. You saw guys who are finally kind of getting up to speed when you're looking at Ravel, and now you're starting to look at Overshown, and now you have Quinn Williams in the mix, and there was a lot of new and excitement. We talked about it before, right? It
Yeah.
was one of those things where we talked about, there's going to be up to potentially 6 new starters on this Cowboys defense here in the next couple
Yeah.
of weeks, and now you're starting to see them ramp up. Overshown, Ravel, they played a lot more snaps than I expected. I
Yeah, I
know
agree.
pregame they talked about how they'd be around 30, less or more, but it was good and exciting to see him. You saw Overshown flying to the sidelines. I saw excitement moments at the beginning of the game where he's just like, he's ready to get some action, and he's like jumping through holes, and he's like, I just want to hit somebody, like, let me have it, coach. And
Yeah.
Ravel is jumping up in the air. You saw him testing his knee, and it looked good for the most part. And even with the additions now of Logan Wilson and Quinnen Williams, of course, Quinnen Williams had the night, right? 1.5 sacks. I mean, just dominating, throwing guys on the ground. And his talent right there is so special and so unique that Kenny Clark looked like a whole new level. He got one-on-ones and was throwing people. I don't know if Cowboys fans, if you hadn't seen the clip, go on Twitter and watch Kenny Clark throw that guard. After Quinn Williams beat him up all night, he finally gets a break from him, and Kenny Clark just throws him to the ground like a rag doll.
Chuck team, yeah.
Yeah, and now Osa gets to do what he was doing before, right? When
Right.
Michael Parsons was here, he gets those one-on-ones, and now he's back to getting that because Quinn Williams is in the mix. It even gave our end some good times too. Javion Clowney played phenomenal. Dalton Exaraku just gets better each week. He's starting to learn his technique. He's starting to learn what kind of player he needs to be to get to the quarterback and what the defense expects of him. Now, before I keep rambling on, Logan Wilson also had a really good game. He, was on point when it comes to at least where he needed to be. And even having a green dot on your first game in as Dallas, you're going to see him start taking more and more snaps as time goes on. I know they
Sure.
started Kenneth Murray, but I expect to see a lot more Logan Wilson as they in the next coming weeks. But like I said, a lot of new faces on the defense, but a lot of exciting faces that Cowboys fans have been waiting for since about week 3 once they figured out this defense was in trouble with Kyrie Elam and all the injuries we were having.
Yeah. No, yeah, you hit just about everything. What's awesome is you're watching the defensive line and just how much a difference it makes to have that much impact in the middle, because any offensive line was able to come out so far versus the Cowboys with, just the center, the guards, and the tackles and the tight end, and block anything we throw at them. You know,
Exactly.
and now all we have to do is throw, one extra player, being, Donovan Wilson coming in to take a run at Geno Smith, and it overwhelms their entire offensive line because they just don't stack up, and it forces them to go one on one versus our very strong defensive tackles and our very strong, defensive ends who are finally starting to get an opportunity to show what they can do in those one-on-one situations, which is what you were just talking about. I mean, it's really phenomenal to see that happen, versus anybody this year. So it's a great game to get everybody kind of on the same page
Yeah.
and get some momentum and some confidence under their belts to see what they can build off of. Obviously this is a tough stretch in the schedule. We'll see how it fares down the road. Just a couple of things have changed. Damone Clark I believe he was waived and is now a Houston Texan as
Yes.
of today. Perion Winfrey is coming back from IR. John Stevens was returned from IR but waived, and Wesley French I think he was an Eagles practice squad player we picked up earlier in the year. He was also released as well.
Yeah.
Um, talking about some of the snaps, who's kind of quietly had a really good game is Kalen Carson. He
Hmm.
played. I had all the snaps written down. I don't know where I jotted them down.
I
I think it's
he
there. Jotted.
played
60. That's
60.
six. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he only missed one play is what Twitter was saying. That's where I got the
Yeah.
information from. That's what they were really pointing out was he only missed one snap and he played 60, right? From
Right.
last week when he played, I think he played a
The
quarter of a
majority.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're ramping him up. And again, right, this is what you and I have been talking about. When we wrote down, I still have my list right here. When you were talking about, who is that cornerback two, you're just riding the hot hand. So if Kalen Carson is the hot hand at cornerback two with DeRon Bland, then you ride it, and even when Trayvon comes back, you keep riding whoever's hot, right? And maybe Siobhan Revel one week, or it may be, Kalen Carson for the rest of the year, or it may be Trayvon. He comes back with a sense of urgency and a sense of pride and saying, hey, I'm still that all pro
He sees him
corner.
out there having fun.
Yeah, he's still like, hey, I'm that all pro corner. Y'all are gonna learn who I am again, and he has that kind of game. So, not to interrupt you, but yeah, it was really exciting to see at least Kalen Carson get a lot of reps and have that confidence. They
And
were even
played well
trying.
throughout. Yeah.
Yeah.
He played. It's so crazy to sit here and see what a good pass rush does to what has been identified as a bad defense,
Hmm.
because you can see that these guys can actually do their job when the front line is capable of making an impact. These are the same players, some of them, not all of them, but some of them are the same players that, over the past few weeks, we've questioned their understanding of zone coverage and man defense, and then there were so many things I could call out. I know a lot of other podcasts have covered some of this stuff, but there were a couple things that I really liked to see. I really love to see Savone Revel going out there and doing as well as he did, coming off of an injury and not having played any games in a significant amount of time. That kid looks like he's going to be just one of those aggressive, strong. You're going to have to work every single play, every single rep, hand to hand, fist to fist, strength to strength against him to have success. That looks awesome. There were a couple
Hmm.
of them where he carried a route that started on the strong side, went right over the top of the linebackers, and went all the way to the other sideline. And he was 10, 12 yards off the ball, and he carried that route all the way across the field and stuck to that receiver who had no window. And if he did get a window, it was going to have to be, on a frozen rope and hit him right in the numbers. And he would have immediately been tackled by a rebel. Just to see him go out there and move like that and his instincts keeping him on that route was pretty amazing. Um, Obviously the linebackers played a lot better. There was a couple of great plays. Logan Wilson looked good. And the opportunities and reps that he got. I think it was a pretty even split between most of the linebackers. I think Overshone and Logan got just a little more up in the
Hmm.
30s, and the rest of the guys got mid 20s. But everybody did a really, really good job. I have no complaints about anything in the secondary from what I saw. It was really good, but the talk of the town was the defensive line.
Yeah, it the thing about what you were talking about earlier about the pass rush is it gives your ability, even bringing the safeties back, having both your starting safeties that your corners can trust. You can be aggressive. You saw Bland
Right.
be a lot more aggressive than he has been in past couple weeks because he can't really trust the guys behind him, and he knows that he doesn't have all day to try to jump somebody because if he tries to jump a route, then all of a sudden if your pass rush isn't there to sack the quarterback, the receiver just jumps behind you, and now it's wide open for a touchdown. So I love that, the ability of our defense starting to be aggressive. Now, I don't know if it's maybe Eberflus starting to schematically turn it up. I'm going to say it's not just because I feel like if he was going to turn up the scheme, we would have seen it weeks ago. But I think getting healthy is really starting to solve some of his scheme problems because now the talent is on the field compared to playing
And the
some
depth later, the
Yeah,
depth and the talent as well. There's no plays off for the opposing offense now.
yep.
Where we got younger or more inexperienced or lesser talented guys coming in for 2 to 6 reps out of every drive. The depth has gotten significantly better.
Yeah, and you said it, and I posted a short of it. It was the perfect storm, right? You
Right.
had coming off the bye, you were bringing back a lot of guys who were excited, ready to play, hungry to turn this season around because the Cowboys aren't out of it yet, right? We're in the hunt. There's a lot of things that can go our way. There's a lot of things that can happen, and a win like that can keep your season alive. And then on top of it, even with the loss of their brother in the locker room, it just provided a lot of spark for them that was able to get out on the field and do what those guys do best, and which is play football. And it was really great to see. And I just think that you nailed it in that preview. Is it was the perfect storm, and you literally saw everything click. And even the offense, and I'll kind of transition to that a little bit. Offense was just grooving, clicking. Javonte Williams was going. George
Yeah,
Pickens and
funky start to that game a little bit though, right?
a little bit, especially
Yeah.
when you see CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens on the sideline. You're like, what in the world's going on? Or you're supposed to see him standing there. I
Yeah.
guess I don't know if you've seen it yet, or I mean, you've
I've
seen
seen
it.
all kinds of stuff. It's really none of our business. You know what I mean?
I mean, look, I'll
Of
give him
course, as a
credit.
fan, we're curious and we're going to speculate, but at the end of the day, we're not owed any explanation.
Look,
It's between them and the team. They played. They had great statistics for the game. They got their touchdowns and we won. So, outside of that, if what I'm seeing is true about him supposedly being seen at 7:30 in the morning throwing up in a casino on game day, man, that's hardcore to go out and play a
I was
game and play
gonna
that
say the
well.
same thing. If I heard George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb were puking after a craps table after gambling all night, one, I'd ask if you won, but two, for you to wake up 12 hours or not wake up 12 hours later, but for you to turn around 12 hours later and be
Yeah,
out there just dropping 9 receptions for 100 plus yards in the TD, hugging field goal posts. I mean, George Pickens may have still been hungover and drunk out there. I mean, he was
yeah,
no, I'm kidding. And then CeeDee Lamb to have the day he had too, which I mean, he almost had himself a touchdown, but he dropped it. Which
a second touchdown.
a second here he had one.
Yeah, he had one. You remember he caught that one in the back middle of the end zone that was kind of wide open
Oh
over the middle. Yeah.
yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, it would have been
Yeah,
the second
it
one.
just went over right over the. What would usually happen to our linebackers happened to their linebackers, where linebacker just didn't carry it deep enough on CD into the end zone. And yeah, he would have had his second one. I think that was just. I think CD stumbled just a little bit out of his break. It's a timing
Hmm.
route, and Dak threw it to where he's supposed to be instead of where he knew he was going to be due to watching him break out of the route. It's still good pass, good attempt. Just didn't reel it in. It happens. Can't be perfect, but
So the way I want to talk about the rushing game a little bit because we kind of talked about that before is who's our RB2, right? You saw Jadon Blue was inactive.
yeah,
Javonte Williams still being the workhorse. He had 22 carries for 93 yards and averaging 4.2 like he always does. He hits somebody, runs them over, hurts them, and then falls for a couple of yards. And then you had Malik Davis who came in and got 4 carries for about 20 yards. I mean, how do you feel watching his reps out there? I know he didn't get much carries, but it seemed like he was making an impact when Javonte Williams needed that rest. It almost was
yeah, man. It
significant.
was it was 5 yards to carry on those 4 carries, which obviously that's easy math, but when you think about it, that's if you have a running back run four carries, you expect them to get what 5 yards a carry, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
the number you'd hope for, and that's what he got. But here's what I like. Do you remember the last time he was in a game where he had more than one carry? If I'm not mistaken, was early in the season or even in preseason, and he was ripping off runs just like that all preseason long. Because I remember one of the interviews that he had when they brought him back to the team was, "I do not want to go home.
Yeah.
I just do not want to go home." Man, that's all heart. Malik Davis has been a journeyman Dallas Cowboy. I've always been a huge fan of him. I'm really glad to see him. One, I'm glad to see him get an opportunity and have success in that opportunity. And I'm glad to see that as far as the organization itself with the coaching staff, that they would let someone who is at where he's at on the depth chart and on the practice squad have the ability to earn the respect and the right to go out there and take advantage of his hard work and get those opportunities. Glad to see it, love to see it, want to see more. Continue to do it, and maybe he solidifies himself as the RB2 for the rest of the season because he's sure running like he wants it.
Yeah. Do you give that credit to maybe the Schottenheimer culture? Like, would you see something like this happen under Mike McCarthy after what you've seen the past couple of years, or
Well, I think
like,
we can answer that question pretty easily based on the situation last year with
yeah, that's what I'm kind of leaning
Elliott. You
at.
know what I mean? So it's like seniority and tenure mattered more than effort and what you earn, right?
Yeah,
So, but we've seen that a lot this year.
because Jadon Blue had his opportunity, right? And he still will have his opportunities, and I'm not afraid for.
He
I
has
think
to
his
build himself back up, I'm sure.
yeah, his development's going to happen, and it's going to maybe take until the rest of the year next year, and you're going to see him really spark and grow. But
Right.
at the moment, Malik Davis is winning his reps, right? He's going out there getting that 5 yards per carry, being smart, not causing penalties, not fumbling the ball, and that's what good coaching does right there. Every good coaching organization always does it. They ride the hot hand. Like we were talking about just with cornerbacks, it's the same thing with the running backs, and it's going to be the same thing with the wide receivers on our offense and even the linebackers, right? Whoever's hot is going to play because that's what we need. We need the guys who are going to make the plays and make the most of their snaps without hurting the team or causing penalties, fumbling the ball, turning it over. It's not just because your name you're going to go out there, right? So
Right.
I give credit to Schottenheimer and that coaching culture and everyone that's involved in those kind of decisions that, hey, y'all are doing the right thing, and I just continue to do that. Maybe Malik Davis falls off here in a couple weeks, and Jadon Blue gets his opportunity, and he runs away with it. That's just how
Sure.
football goes, right? You said it. Malik Davis said in his quote, "I don't want to go home." That's his mentality. He knows every rep, every snap counts, and he's gonna go balls to the walls for it. And I give him respect.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, outside of that, I mean, let's talk about wide receiver three. Did we get your wide receiver three question answered yet? Or are we still kind of trying to figure out? We bouncing around that still. So I'm trying
Yeah,
to think
I
of what
don't
we
know.
talked
It's so
about.
hard. No disrespect to anybody who played in the game and is currently, getting reps in the game, but it's just like where it's feast or famine now, where last year we were in famine when it came to wide receivers. We were worried. And now we have so much talent out there and so much talent we haven't even seen in game that I don't know where we stand. I think as far as what's been shown on the field so far, Flo is number three.
Yeah, because I'm looking at.
He's catching attempts and he's
Mhm.
not dropping attempts.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it right now. Pickens, right? He had 11 targets, caught 9 of them. CeeDee Lamb got 7 targets, caught 5 of them. Hunter Luthi goes 3 for 3 for the night, which we'll get to in a
Sure.
minute. I'd like to talk about how he seemed to get involved with when we haven't seen him in a while. Ferguson gets 5 targets, had 4 receptions there. Which Ferguson, the tight end role has kind of turned into a short route kind of thing. The play action kind of dump off kind of guy, which I respect and I like it. And then they'll take their deep shots eventually, like they always do. But when you're looking at the wide receiver three after that, Flournoy, Turpin, and Tolbert got targets. Who do you think got the most targets out of all of them? You got to guess?
Probably Turpin.
Yes, Turpin had 2, and while Flournoy and Tolbert had 1, which
Right.
still doesn't really answer my question who our wide receiver three is. I think it's
Yeah.
just all about what fits in the scheme and whoever the hot hand is, which I respect.
Yeah.
But that's how special your offense is because you have such 2 dominant receivers. Your wide receiver three, he matters, but it's not like we have to depend on some random going out there of
Right.
CeeDee Lamb and taking targets away. CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens are such threats themselves that you have to pick and choose your battle.
Yeah.
And we've seen games where George
Yeah.
Pickens pops off because they're going to give the inside slant all day. And then we've seen games where they'll double George, and now CeeDee Lamb's going to come running crossing routes and burn you. So it's
Yeah.
awesome
We're
to
we're
see.
gonna have to find the and right now I think if you're looking for just a bona fide slot number three, every snap guy out of what we have playing on the field, it's probably leaning towards Flournoy, where it
Yeah.
was typically Tolbert. Not to take anything away from Turpin, but for the type of skill set that Turpin has, there's only a selection of plays that you would utilize him for. But an every down wide receiver right now, it's going to be Flournoy, and that could change because we're not. I think we're going to probably run into defenses that have the depth to match our offensive power um, over the next 3 weeks. The Eagles, while their defense is very good, I don't know if their cornerback depth is as strong as it would need to be to really make it tough for Dallas. But definitely when you start running into like the Chiefs and the Chargers and stuff like down the road, their depth is a little bit better. Where they can have a little bit more success manned up one on one with George and CD, and we'd have to find
Hmm.
some way to get our slot guy, our third receiver, and the Lukeys and the Fergusons and all that open. So we'll see, but yeah, right now George Pickens looks unstoppable, unstoppable.
Yeah. How do you feel about Hunter Lupke? Is that something that the
Well, I just thought
Raiders?
it was funny that we were just talking about that. We're like, where
Yeah.
did Lutke go? And then boom, out of nowhere, here he is, taking blocks, taking passes, huffing and puffing, first downs. It was good to see.
Is that something that maybe we expect more of to continue, or do you feel like that was something maybe that was a schematic thing against the Raiders?
I don't know why they changed it up. Probably because of the depth in running back.
Mm.
And he's a known quantity. He's a known, this is what we will get from Hunter. He's going to do he's going to keep the ball safe, and he's reliable forever, right? So I think they're going to have to find ways to utilize him in combination with our running backs. And that's good because I think he does provide a little something because I think a lot of times people, the defensive, overlook him and underestimate him. And then when you whip something out to him on the flat there and he runs you over for that 6 or 7 yards, you don't realize it until it happens to you, and that's what he did. So he's a good
Yeah.
weapon.
He is a good weapon because we saw. I mean, he's been on the team for what, his third year now. I
Yeah, I think
know.
it's just year three.
Yeah, yeah. I remember the first year we were like, man, we gotta get this guy out here. This is someone
Yeah,
that needs to make our team. And now
yeah,
last year we saw a lot more of him because of the injuries we had and the Mike McCarthy system. And then now this year we were like, oh, Loopty's going to be in the mix, and we had nothing of him. And all of a sudden
yeah,
he's starting to like catch a couple balls, run them once, and I'm like, whoa, where's this coming from? So it's exciting to see, But Loopty's an awesome special team guys too. But you have any maybe criticisms of the game? Is there anything that you saw that kind of or like kind of maybe made you worry or anything like that about the upcoming
mm.
weeks? Or not talking about the upcoming weeks, but like ooh,
Yeah. No,
like
I
we
get
need
what you
to
mean.
fix that.
I stick to the idea that when coaches plan for their season and they do their primary install of the playbook and their scheme and what they're going to be trying to do throughout the year, you can only teach so much at one time and have variations of so much, right? And there's probably two halves. There's before the buy and after the buy. This is what we're going to try to do before, and then we'll have another install after the or during the buy, and then these are because you put enough tape out there and people start to figure you out. So you got to
Hmm.
change it up a little bit. So I could be wrong. Somebody who knows more than me could probably tell me if I'm right or wrong. But I would assume that during the buy, you take the concepts that you already know how to do and you've been doing week after week and you tweak them and alter them just a little bit so that if anybody is watching you, where they think you're going to go left, you go right or you go straight, and it changes things up. So your plays are the same, but the end result is different, as far as what happens during the play. So I think we got a little bit of that during this Raiders game, which is why we saw, some of the Hunter Lupke stuff and a little bit more from George Pickens because I think this. He only runs like 3 or 4 routes, you know,
Hmm.
and his signature route is the slant. So, and that's why he, whips it across the middle and it hits him, and he can either go or he can spin out and tear you up that way. But I wouldn't say that's a criticism. I'm hoping it's a confirmed observation going forward. and we still do the same things we've been doing, just try to be less predictable about it, so that nobody figures us out, and we can utilize all these weapons that we now have, um, with our strengthened defense to get on a bit of a run here, because we're 4-5-1, so while everybody's watching us, nobody's watching us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. But all right, you ready for some shoddy player of the games? We
Well,
can get on that. Or
yeah.
you got one more?
Let me discuss this, because speaking of being 4-5-1, you know, nobody is anticipating us going to the playoffs. I'm a fan. Um, I'm a never die.
Exactly.
I think there's definitely a shot here.
Oh yeah.
We just need wins. I don't need them to. I would love it. I don't need them to rip off 6 wins in a row. I just need them to win a lot more than they lose, right?
Hmm.
And the pressure's not on Dallas, to be honest. It's really not. So it's like, you know, the teams that are better than us, all they have to do is beat us. But if we play well and we win, and I don't know if you caught this, but just a couple hours ago, Jalen Hurts was doing an interview, and one of the interviewers asked him, "What's the difference between the Philly that played Dallas in Week 1 and the Philly that plays Dallas this week?" And he said, "Well, we win then. Obviously, we win then, and we win now. So, what's the question?" And I'm like, wow, bro. Okay.
So hang on, but hang on,
It's
bulletin
yeah.
board material.
Yeah. It's like, well, thank you for that. We're just gonna write that one down. It's like,
Yeah, I
man, what a
saw
knucklehead.
to add on to that, I saw a Twitter post where some Eagles fans are like, "Oh, we got this All-Pro defensive end. What's his name from the Dolphins? They got Phillips. I know his last name is Phillips. I think it's like Jane Phillips or whatever it is."
Yeah.
And then they're like, "We're gonna play Dallas with him this time." And Dallas fans are like, "We got Quinn and Williams. You didn't play this guy last time either." So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It will
Yeah.
be a very. I don't want to get too much into it because we'll save it for our preview, but
No, totally.
it is, I talk about this with you a lot is, you always have those build up games like the Raiders where you kind of bounce back and then you feel things are good. But then you have the challenge, which will be Philly. And then after that challenge, you'll have the Chiefs. And then you'll kind of get back down to like, Minnesota, right? But these next two games are going to be a challenge. You're really going to find out what your team is and what kind of you need to work on for either this year, next year, or whatever we kind of find out where our path is from there. But I'm excited, man. I love division rivalries. I love the fall weather. I love when you get to play the Eagles at home and
Right.
Eagles fans want to talk trash, but last time
Yeah.
they came to Dallas, they got the paddle, bah, 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 bah,
Right.
dacking them
Yeah,
back and
they're the
forth.
Super Bowl champs. They're the greatest team ever to
Yeah,
play the game. They have the greatest quarterback to ever win Super Bowls. We should just hand them the Super Bowl trophy now. They got the greatest wide receivers of all time ever. Their coach is the greatest of all time ever. They have no flaws. They are absolutely 100% perfect. Their green is just the right shade of green to be the best green of all time.
oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, they're magnanimous. So
Yeah.
how dare we even invite them over to our stadium to lose? So it's like it's crazy. So hey, we're 4-5-1. We're out of the playoffs, right? So
Yeah.
but my thing is this: I see more Eagles fans posting it about Dallas Cowboys than I see Dallas Cowboys fans posting it about Dallas Cowboys. I don't know where you're from, but it sounds like they're kind of scary. So
You're
I don't know.
scared.
I mean, I think they they're watching just a little bit. So, but the pressure's on them. They're 8-2.
Yeah. I mean, that's all it comes down to is Dallas. I mean,
We're just your little Cowboys.
yeah, looking at the rest of the season, I mean, when you talk playoffs and all that, Cowboys, just take care of your business. You can only
Right.
control what you can control. If the cards fall in our way, the cards fall in our way. But if you win every game, you're going to make a statement that we're going to make the playoffs, right? But
Right.
I don't expect to win every game, but I do expect to maybe go on a run here, depending on how much the momentum carries. And maybe we did find some defensive issue fixes because of healthiness and trades. So it's
Right.
exciting to see. It was good to not only beat the Raiders, but you really beat them. Like, you didn't just barely sneak out and you're like, oh man, there's still some worries. Like, that was dominant the whole entire time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, except for just a few plays, with some stack, slants and stuff that got away from us a little bit. But in their first 10 or 15 plays, they're always going to have great execution. We're not going to know what they're going to try to do. Brock Bowers is obviously their best player. They have to get the ball to him. But
yeah,
I think Dallas, outside of whatever was going on with our starting wide receiver combo. I think they got it reeled in pretty quick, and we got after them. Just a little wonky on the start, but what do you expect? Coming back from the bye, a lot of team change, a lot of team, you know, activity and
hmm,
stuff that's happened and emotion. I think that's just kind of to be expected. But how they played down the rest of the game is really what matters. And if they can establish that early at home for the next 2 weeks and play to a level that requires teams to just play better than them for 4 quarters, never know what can happen.
exactly. But all right, player of the game, or you got anything else?
Player of the game. Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, let's do it. Let me.
Yeah, what's in the cup?
It's a shotty.
So unfortunately, I failed on my shot glass and my lemon cup. So this week I'm going to be drinking out of my splendid water bottle here as my drink. Yep, he's got the do over there. So you want to kick it off, or you want me to?
Yeah, I'll go first.
All right.
Mine's probably going to be a surprise. It's offensive. I'm usually a defensive
Oh,
guy, but
let's
I'm going
see.
to go with Dakota Prescott.
What? You're not going to
As
go with Tyler Guyton? You didn't
no,
see the flop? Tyler Guyton
yeah.
sold the best show of the.
I mean, according to the way he got knocked out, he lost that fight, so I'm not giving him props for it.
Sorry, not to interrupt. Keep going.
No, yeah, Dak Prescott, uh, 4 TDs, one ghost TD. So I think he played out of his mind. And somebody else said it earlier today, and I'm going to piggyback off that statement because this is the truth. Um, I think it might have been Rome. He said that we've become numb to great play from our players. Because it's been masked or outshined by bad defense. That a performance like that, man, that was stellar. How often does a quarterback, I think it was like 24 out of 33 for almost 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, that's
Hmm.
as good as you can ask from your quarterback. And Dak's done that pretty consistently over the last 3 or 4 years, and it's become like a standard. So it's like, man, he deserves all the accolades and shout out for that because I think he gets a lot of disrespect, you know. But yeah, so
Yeah.
that's my
Nah,
player of the game.
No, I agree. It is special when Dak retires and he's done, and we get into this era of like looking at new quarterbacks and stuff, and maybe we get lucky again, and we kind of just transition to someone else, and we're like, oh man, we're back at it. If we go through a struggle bus after Dak Prescott, Cowboys fans are gonna look back and be like, I wish we had a couple more years of Dak, just because he always shows up, he always plays, and yes, I know the criticism will be like, well, he chokes in the playoffs. Well, to a certain degree, you could say he may choke, but most of the time when I'm looking at it, it's like the defense doesn't really show up. We have mental mistakes that happen, but anyways, I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole. Dak
Sure.
Prescott's a great quarterback, and if you can't see it, then I mean, I don't know how to tell you. I guess you're gonna be a
Right.
Cowboys hater forever. But my player of the game, it's going to go to Quentin Williams. And the only reason why is because he was the new guy. He shows up with 1.5 sacks. He seemed to change the whole entire defensive line. And on top of it all, the top analysts in the world were hating on the trade, and he shows up and shows out. And I can't wait for him to continue that success, and not only his own success, but show that he is such a contributing factor that Kenny Clark, Osa, Ezeraku, Clowney, and all those guys who get in and benefit off of him
Yeah.
is going to
Force
bolster this whole
multiplier.
entire
Yeah.
defense. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Excellent.
give it to him. Show up
Sure.
and show out.
Awesome.
So plus I'll take more dances from him. His little celebration was awesome. The little
Yeah, yeah,
I can't
it
picture it, but
scared me right before he got up because it looked like he was grabbing his ankle, but he was actually popping his shoe back on, and like my heart dropped. I was like, "Oh my god, no! Yeah, not you just got here, scared to death out of me."
yeah, that would have been ridiculing. It would have been like the Mavericks and AD. He plays good
Yeah,
3 quarters, and all of a sudden he gets hurt and he's out for the rest of the year. You're like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah. Man, twists his knee coming out, slapping fives during the intro. He dropped like, come on, man. But yeah.
but. All right, well, that's going to do it for us, man. Cowboys Game Plan. Thank you for subscribing, liking. We're at 170 subscribers as we are filming right now, and we're greatly appreciated. It's been a fun journey. We love talking about it. We love that y'all are commenting in our shorts, whether it's, the Cowboys suck or whether it's, actually, trying to answer what we're talking about. So
Right.
we appreciate everything, and until then, we'll see y'all for the preview.